I'm joined by the man, Day Moore.
The champ is here.
This is the last interview of this series that I've done, which is probably like 30 interviews with people, and I
Wow.
couldn't think of a more fitting person to do it with.
No one else would pick up the phone. Thanks, man.
So I think it's safe to say most people know who you are by virtue of the fact that we've worked together in partnership for the last 9 years. And people often confuse us. It's
Makes no sense. If you're one of those people watching this, have a look. How did you ever do it?
And so it's been this great partnership, and both professionally and personally, and a great friendship that we've built. And so I thought this would be great to cap off, leaving Hello Sunday Morning to talk through what we've both learned as a bit of a kind of time capsule, and 10 years later when we watch this again, to think about what the last decade's been like.
Two fish memories trying to go back 9 years. Like, it'd be interesting.
Oh yeah, that happened.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Hello Sunday what?
Yeah.
So let's go back right to the beginning. Tell me your experience of, that first presentation that I did, and the first time you heard about Hello Sunday Morning, the first time we met each other.
Yeah, mate, that's a great first question. So I was at, I think it was a conference about kind of young people, alcohol and drugs, and I had to be there to go to a bunch of different sessions, and then I think it was maybe 23, and then do like the final talk of the kind of conference about what I learned. And so I was just fluttering between, and then saw like Hello Sunday Morning on like the sort of program. Was like, this seems different, like, not like all the other things, like the, pharmacology of this. I was like, oh, it's kind of different. It was kind of like not what I expected to see you up there talking. I think for me, you were just like my age, kind of heaps of the stories resonated with me about like kind of what you've been through and why you did this. And I'd always taken breaks from drinking as well. So it was like, oh, all right, I kind of get that. But not with the intention you had of really like reflecting on why you drank and how you drank and what that meant in your life. Like for me, I'd be like, well, I'll take 3 months off for this, and I'm going to get like ruined for a month. And that was just not a strange thing at all. And I think what I liked the most, or was like most like intrigued by, was you're actually kind of doing more than you did, or like kind of more crazy stuff than when you were drinking, and sort of forced yourself to do that and really got out of your comfort zone. So I'm not really kind of sure what I thought, but I know I was like, there's something here, and I'm going to talk to this guy. And you love telling the next part, so I might, if you want to tell that part, go for it. But that's kind of where I was at.
So I finished the presentation, and normally people come down and talk to you after the presentation, and like, and a few people had a chat with me, and it was, it went well. And then I was like about to walk out, and I hears, oi, Chris, and turn across, and here's this guy on his laptop just sitting there, like typing away. And I walk over, and I'm like, oh, who's this idiot? Why would you God.
No tact.
Yeah, no tact. And then I walk over, and I go, yeah, hey. And he's like, just hang on a sec. And just finish the email. And I'm like, infuriated. Anyway, I was always intrigued by this kind of thing. And I remember we had a good chat about it. And then the next kind of conversation I think we had was in Brisbane, back up in Brisbane. And we were talking about like the organization. At that point, it had grown to 5 people, but we'd sort of like lost a bit of traction. Like we had a big grant that we missed. And so at that point, I was like, this is sort of something that I, have built, but it's sort of fluctuated down a bit. And then talking to you about it, you were like, oh, what do you need? What's your biggest problem? Like, well, raising raising funds. And from that point, we kind of worked with each other on doing that. What was the early days for you like? You know, when you were at Kids Helpline before that, and you were like, okay, this is something that I'd like to jump into.
Yeah. So, I mean, maybe like a lesson for people starting something up like you were is, just if someone seems like they've got a decent idea and can fit a hole, give them a chance. Because I remember kind of writing down some ideas of what might work, not even intending to do it. And I think your words were like, do you want to do all that? Like, you want to do this stuff? And I was kind of like, oh, let me think about it. So I think kind of my first day walking into the Fortitude Valley office, which clearly was built for many more people, which at that stage, I think you were somewhere, it was just me and maybe like Steve, the developer, was there. I remember walking in being like, what? How did this happen? Kind of thing. Like, I'm just here. But felt really kind of at home about it. And from day one, really like empowered to make it work. And that like was kind of, all right, well, cool. That's what I said I would do. So I'll just get on with doing it. And I think early on, that's kind of what people did at Hello Sunday Morning. They sort of had to as we grew.
Mm. What's the first, you've been extraordinary over the years of like getting grants and like building those partnerships. What was the first one that you really remember getting across the line?
So I think that one of the very first things I did was there was like a government proposal that you had that had either gone out or was in draft. And I had never done government funding before. So I sort of kind of cleaned that up and then just like sent it to all the states, which looking back now, you're like, what a waste of your time,
Yeah.
And then also like realizing, well, we're not going to get massive, big corporate grants and partners straight away. So let's just try a few little ones. Like, there's enough here and we can tell a story. So it seemed pretty early, like you probably remember more than me, like definitely in the first 3 months, like we had one or two state governments kind of come back around. It seems interesting, like let's give it a go. And we were actually, we had Queensland on board, so building on that. But the first one I really remember was ING, the bank, and they came, and I think it was like 25 grand, and literally they were like, show us what you've got. Seems interesting, like kind of get on with it. And that kind of early win for me and for us both was like, all right, well, now we've got to do this. Let's kind of get on with it. And sort of for the first time, it wasn't like turning around to my boss or someone and being like, what do I do next? Like, kind of just had to get on with it and figure it out ourselves.
Mm. And like we got a few wins there and then made the move down to Sydney. Oh, you were going to do like a master's thing, right? Like,
well, I was doing my master's in org psych at UQ, but I don't know what the hell was wrong with us. Like, we both lived in Brisbane. We were both dating girls in Sydney. We were both like in Sydney more than sort of in Sydney and Melbourne or Canberra more than we're ever in Brisbane. I think we were driving, my memory, and again, fish, we were driving back from, I think, like Blackmores. We'd gone to pitch them something.
which they did not go for.
No, I don't think we ever heard back from them. But we're here, Blackmores. If you're interested, we've come a long way. And I think either you were moving already, or it was kind of like, why don't we just go down there? And you went. I think I came a few months later, and this lasted. Those relationships didn't, but this lasted.
Well, we were canvassing either Byron Bay or Sydney, right?
Oh, mate. Chris is like, we should go to Byron, we should go to Melbourne, like always wanting to move the office everywhere.
So speaking of pitching, what's your experience of like the worst like pitching moment that we've had? I think we had the same one.
Yeah, I don't know if we can call it out. It's going to go online.
Yeah.
But there was one to a sporting code that we delivered, and we kind of gave it our gusto and had really prepared for it. And maybe I don't know if it was halfway through, we kind of gave each other a look, maybe less, that, uh-oh. And then good 40-minute presentation, like really clear ask. How many sounds and questions did we get?
I think one of them came back like, we're sponsored by an alcohol company. Like,
even if that, right, and just sort of shoot off stage, and that's really kick in the guts. But there's just been some amazing ones, right? And had so much fun with it, even to the very end, like when we did a short video for Vodafone Foundation last week, and we just love doing this, like, and
yeah.
just telling people what we're up to, and keeping it fresh and fun for them. So maybe we didn't do that day.
Yeah. Tell us about the Vodafone pitch that you did, because I mean,
Oh,
that's in the Hall of Fame of pitches.
yeah, but if only that one had been filmed. I have to give a good shout out to Haley Cavill on this one. So Haley found a commercial that showed who was the
Lionel
singer,
Richie.
Lionel Richie, doing his Hello song, and he was actually singing it to a guy opening his fridge at home, and there was like a little mini keg in there, and it was about how the guy was home. It's so like great to see his home keg. It was just a beautiful like synergy with what we were doing around like culture change, but also like the hello and the inviting nature of it was like, this would be a great start to a pitch. So I like rewrote the song to be like, hello, we are the partner you've been looking for. I gotta find the words, like literally rewrote the song. And that's how I started the pitch. And I was the first of the day. And I'm sure the foundation are expecting some kind of nonprofits to come in and talk maybe science about what they did. And they had this guy that I didn't sing, but like started it with this most bizarre way that could have just flopped. But I got enough smirks and like, okay, there's something here that like I was off. And I mean, I practiced that thing, like a 40-minute pitch. I'm going to say like 50 times, right? And I could just deliver it. And the fun with like the effort just made it amazing.
And that led to, I mean, they weren't going to fund us, right? Like there was a big, for any corporate to back a brand that promotes anything to do with drinking, it's a tough ask. Like what happened afterwards?
Yeah, I mean, if you're a corporate that probably has a young customer base as well, and this is kind of 7 years ago when the conversations around alcohol and the culture were very different. Like we have come a long way. It was a risk, to have maybe that your customers or even your staff, like lots of retail staff would think, oh, what? Like the company, doesn't want us to have fun and to not drink, and that's not what we're about. But also to kind of partner with an organization focused on that. Is there a risk that we're sending a message to the market that Vodafone has a drinking problem as a company? Like these were all fears that we heard from different companies, and all I could really do was reassure them that like it's not what we're about, right? We're about actually like empowering people to change an aspect of their life so they can actually get more out of it and have like more fun and be much happier. And they took that risk. And I think what really kept that going was like we made a big effort to like meet as many of their staff as we could, and lots of their staff either took a break from drinking or cut back and like would report back to Vodafone around, oh my God, I feel amazing, like, and thank you. And it just ran from there.
It's been like, 6-7 year partnership that like so solid, all from that original pitch.
Yeah. I think Dan even mentioned it at some event recently. It was good fun. I'll promise I'll find the words of the song and I'll send them to you.
And so let's fast forward to, so I went midway through, sort of 5 years into HSM. We're working on this together. I go over and do an MBA over in Oxford. You step up, be the general manager, sort of manage the organization, grow it, get a big federal grant across the line. And then I come back. What was that like? That year back, that 2014 year. What was your experience of that?
When you had returned? Yeah, I think like kind of that time away, I'd been so really laser focused on like kind of revenue and like sustainability and growth. I'd kind of taken my eye off the ball with some of the things we were building and like the dynamics of the team. And probably really realized that there was a lot of work that you did that I never saw around keeping that stuff going really well, and how difficult it is to do both incredibly well at the same time. So I think it gave us a good sense of like our partnership, and I kind of had stepped up in that phase and, oh, there's parts here that I really like. Oh, and there's parts here that like I'm really not good at and I need your help. And that helped us incredibly. I think honestly, man, your first or second day back, we announced the like grant with the federal government. We had a big event and did some media, and that's when Ebola was happening, if you
Yeah.
recall. And
Yeah.
the media came, and Minister Dutton was there, and you sort of talked, and it was your second day back, and you kind of 98% knew what we were doing, but 2% a bit unsure. And the media sort of listened. I remember the media listened, and they were waiting, and then you stopped, and then they went, "Can we talk about Ebola now?" And Minister Dunn just kind of pushed you to the side. Like, I'll take it from here, you know. But we still got to run that night on 10 from memory. To be honest, like, it was relief, you know, because I'd been working so hard, and I was kind of working too much. Like, I remember I'd like put on weight, and like mentally I wasn't that great. And you sort of really challenged me around, man, you got to sort this stuff out. Like, this isn't good to be doing this and working in this way if it's affecting your health, and having you back, but also with that approach, like, you know, helped a lot. But that kind of year, really can't remember exactly what happened. I think it's just like, you know, we just figured out the relationship again.
Yeah. I remember, it was a hard year, I think. Like, it's hard sort of coming back into it. Had like a lot of issues with the board. Well, I did anyway. And trying to work through that. I mean, what did that look like? I mean, because it got to a point where the board and I weren't working that well, and then they all kind of resigned. What did you think about it at that point?
Yeah, like, and you know, you and I have talked about this, right? Like, you were kind of away, and you know, checking in a little bit, but I was kind of had the board and the funders and the team, and sort of, I hadn't realized, but a lot of them were kind of looking to me for leadership, but I hadn't really gone, well, I am leading right now. Like, you know, I was kind of holding the fort. So, you know, I guess kind of another lesson, right, in that the board probably were kind of going in one direction around what they thought needed to be done, that I wasn't really getting too involved in, because you and I were talking about another direction. And I remember when that all sort of came to a head, I was in Europe on holiday. I think it was like a month holiday. And then either I got back and who were like, well, we have to get a new board, you know, or we're like, well, either tomorrow's kind of I'm going or they're going. And part of me was like, oh, thank you for not bothering me with this when I was away. But the other part was like, well, I kind of really believe in the idea we have and the strategy. So if they don't believe in that, well, neither of us can be here, like, because like they were so fundamentally divided in the direction of the organization. But I kind of just let you handle that, because it was more about like you and those relationships than it was about like me and where we were heading.
I think but I remember in those, like, by this time we were working out of Piermont, and in that awfully hot,
we're sorry to everyone that had to work there,
office. And I remember, like, as it all evolved and they quit, and you had to step up onto the board because we needed 3 people, and Deb was on there. And then but I remember the kind of commitment that we made, that we were like, well, we've got a blank canvas here. Like, we can take this completely in our own direction, but like the most important thing that we can do is focus on culture and building a really good culture. And you know, I'm sure we haven't kind of got that right the whole way through, but it's been a kind of central tenet of our work to make sure that people enjoy working at Hello Sunday Morning and have a good experience.
Yeah, just have fun, right? Like, we have fun with this, and like, we kind of live and breathe it. It's the thing we probably text about the most, and it doesn't feel like work. So trying to create a culture like that is really important, but it's hard as we get bigger, you know, because we kind of, the new people have less time with us, the two of us. You have to try and instill that sort of cultural leadership in more and more people. It's difficult, and you do a much better job of that than I. Like, you know, staying connected with everyone in the team as we've grown, and it's like just a great asset you have. And then I think you came back from Oxford having that much stronger. Like, I don't know if you were, you know, exposed to lots of CEOs that really talked about that. So where did that kind of come from?
I think so. I think also working like on teams. Yeah, I mean, working within teams in through the NBA too, and seeing different kinds of working
Mm,
relationships. Um, and when like it really sings, like when you got a good team, you're like, fuck, like this is you're more for the sum of the parts, and
mm,
I think that felt really good. Like, and I think it's been an ever evolving process too. Like because as you lead this thing, like we're often talking about, well, this is this is where we're at as an organization, and this person might not fit anymore, or this is sort of like how it's not working, and they're the hard calls I think that are also necessary to maintain that culture too. You know,
yep.
um, and probably over the years we've there most of our time have been spent talking about that of like,
Mm.
okay, to maintain this sense of culture, like what do we have to let go of? And
And the
I
things
feel-
we've kind of accepted that we know aren't great, you see they influence the culture, and you're like, okay, even though there's good parts here, you got to kind of get rid of things that are good sometimes to remove the things that affect the culture, and the hard calls to make quickly.
and when now we're a team of around 30 people and it's grown into what it is, what's what excites you about the future of Hello Sunday Morning? Like what kind of gets you going and really inspires you now?
Yeah. I really think it is like you talked about that blank canvas, when we're at Piedmont, and we really set around a strategy of like, well, let's build this product Daybreak and let's try and sell it this way and get these outcomes from it and like move forward. And kind of we did it, like it probably took longer and we didn't do it perfectly, but like if you looked at it and like, well, we kind of did it. And a lot of people said we were crazy and we couldn't do it. And I remember meetings of people kind of, that won't work, or
Yeah.
like, you two can't do that, like, or lead that. So I think I'm excited because we now have kind of this platform of initial success and trust that we like stuck to it and kind of achieve what we're aiming to achieve. And I feel like when I talk to people now, there's that sense of Hello Sunday Morning, like, oh yeah, no, you deliver and we like can believe in you and you're really, really capable.
Mm.
And now we've got, more intelligent people on the team than kind of ever before coming up with all the ideas. It's just exciting to think how I can, put resources into that fire, like funding and partnerships, and how I can work with our new CEO to kind of steward that culture so they can work really well.
Mm.
And I'm not 100% sure on exactly what the next product or service might be. I just know like we have so many options and goodwill internally and externally that we can pull it off.
Mm. And when looking back, I mean, we've been doing this from our early 20s and now in our early 30s. What's how have you grown as an individual? Like what have been the kind of big changes and transformations that you've had as a result of doing this work?
I mean, one thing that hasn't changed is I wish we still had the van to cruise around in. I do miss the van. I think I'd love the van as much now as I do when I was 23.
You can probably get a better one now.
Yeah, we could probably get a better one, but it wouldn't be the same.
No.
I think a kind of thing I tell people often that go into something either on their own or like take a bit of a risk is the hard part is that if you kind of fail, it's on you and you can sort of make excuses, but ultimately you sort of know, well, I didn't put in that effort or I didn't think that through, and there's no one else to blame. There's not that like turn around and, oh, it's their fault. But the good side of that is kind of when you succeed, you're like, awesome. Like it's this feeling of putting together like an idea and a strategy and moving forward with that and like feeling real ownership over it. And the thing I've had to do like better over the years, and as a kid, I probably struggled with this, is like share, like really like having to learn to share, and in a like not in a negative way, like I want to take all the credit, but in a positive way of like, actually, if I let more people in, it'll be better and it'll be faster and like it'll achieve more. And I'm not quite there yet, but I've seen as we've gotten bigger, like year on year, like, all right, share this information or like let someone into this bubble. Like that's been kind of huge for me. And just responsibility, man. Like I remember the first time I did like a HSM and 3 months off drinking, and I went home to Perth, and one Sunday, like it was literally a Sunday morning, and Mum and I were hanging out, and she was like, "This is so nice," and I was like, "What do you mean?" She's like, "Well, I walked into your bedroom where you sleep when you visit, and like I can't think of a time I went in there when you visited. It didn't reek of alcohol in the morning, and like had this sense of like, oh wow, like the things I do actually really impact people, like drinking, and like through HSM." A thing that I've really taken on that sometimes maybe isn't great is like a sense of responsibility over the people in the team, and like making sure that, you know, they can like have jobs and like achieve the things they want to achieve. And like it's grown in me, like even when I look at the way that I operate in my family, right? Which I don't think I would have had if I hadn't have met you, and like you hadn't given me that chance to like have ownership and responsibility over it. If I just kind of done another job where someone just told me what to do every day. So that's my answer there, and kind of my thank you to you.
Thanks, man. It's been yeah, I just wonder like if you know how often you come across partnerships that are like this in life. Like, you know, there's probably it may be a handful in a 70-year career where you feel so perfectly balanced in your energy and kind of sparks, and just the extraordinary time that we've had together and the fun, you know, like the ups and downs, and just but laughing all the way through it. And you just are such a unique character. You're able to like go into the depths of the detail and at the same time go into these kind of abstract heights. And I just spend all my time up here.
I'll come see you. Fly up there with you.
And for that, you know, I just want to thank you, and it's been an incredible ride, and I hope it's, you know, the end of a chapter, but not the end of the story. And yeah, thanks, man.
Thanks, man. No, I appreciate it. I mean, mate, we could do a whole podcast about business partnerships and, you know, the questions that we get about this strange relationship we have. So we'll save that for another decade down the line.
Like how many times?
Sponsored by Vodafone Foundation.
How many times have you shared a hotel bed because you can't afford it?
I think we told a funder that, and she replied with, "Oh, well, next time you have to drive to us, like we'll just kind of, you know, we can just pay for the room. You don't have to worry about using some of the funds for it." Oh, we're cool. It's fine.
Enjoy it. And on that note, thank you, my good friend.
Thanks, man. See ya.